Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Chris Barnes, and I'm Professor of Business Management here at Lakeland. And I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you so much for coming out tonight to the Dworkin and Bernstein Management Lecture Series at Lakeland Community College. The series is brought to you by an endowment by the Dworkin and Bernstein law firm. Our speaker tonight is Jack Schron, president of Jergens Incorporated. Jergens opened its doors in 1942 and has grown into one of the world's largest manufacturers of standard tooling components, vices, and other work-holding equipment. Jack Schron became the president of Jergens in 2007 after having worked there for 30 years. He's also the co-founder and former president of Tooling University, otherwise known as Tooling U, that they created because they had a need for qualified workers who were trained and could work in a manufacturing environment. Jack said right now it's an online program and they have 250,000 students. And they expect in a few years for that to be about 1 million students. Am I telling your whole story here? I'm sorry. It started as a division of Jergens in 2001. Jack has a Bachelor of Science from Florida Southern College and a law degree, a Juris Doctor, from Ohio Northern University. And he's also attended the Army Command and Generals College. He served in the United States military for 3 years of active duty in the United States Army JAG Corps, and then 28 years through the United States Army Reserves, and he retired with the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. He's licensed to practice law in Ohio Supreme Court, Florida Supreme Court, and the United States Court of Military Appeals. He has held a variety of elected positions in the greater Cleveland area, including the Cuyahoga County 6th District Councilman, Cuyahoga County Executive, Cuyahoga County Economic Development Commission member, and Vice Chairman, and the Cuyahoga County Investment Advisory Board. And he's held the offices of President and Vice President on the Chagrin Falls Board of Education. So he's a politician, he's a lawyer, he is recently retired from the Army Reserves. He is on many, many boards, and he's an executive and runs a business, and he's an executive who still answers his own phone. I was really surprised when I called him and he picked up and said, "Hi, this is Jack." That does not happen very often. Jack lives in Chagrin Falls with his wife, and he has children. How many did we say? 3 children.
3, I better answer.
You better answer. Three children in Chagrin Falls. So please help me welcome Jack Schron, president of Jergens Incorporated.
Thank you, Chris. And this is a little bit like semi-old home week for me because my wife went to school here. She learned her skills from the Honorable Kathy Patterson here as far as her dental hygiene skills, and she used that profession for 30 plus years. And unbeknownst to me, Chris Uchek walked up to me and said, "Hi, I've been one of Mary Ellen's patients for almost 30 years, and so it's really a great educational environment you have here. It's a great school. One of the things that I remember the most was Dad always had to make meals on Sunday night because my wife, Mary Ellen, was busy studying for one of Kathy Patterson's preparations for Monday morning when she had to hit the books running. But thanks very much for having me here. It's great being here at Lakeland Community College. I think the last time I was here was like 2004. That seems like 100 years ago in my life, but it was a great chance to be here and to talk with folks from the business program. As president of Jergens, I just want to set the record straight. That's not the hand lotion company, so just, they're down in Cincinnati. If you need any hand lotion products, feel free to see our folks down there. So whenever anybody comes up to speak, I always think, okay, what is it that they're going to be talking about, and what brought them to the path of being on the podium up here, and what is it that gives them the sense of what makes them tick out there. So I thought when Chris asked me to speak tonight, I said, okay, what would you like to hear? And she said, well, give me a little background about the history of Jergens. And so we'll talk about that, not the hand lotion. She said, give you a little background about how you got here and what your steps are. And then tell me what are your values? What are the values you bring to your life, and what are the values you bring to your business? And then we'll finish it off with what are the challenges that I see for the future, for the businesses of manufacturing, making stuff, putting it in a box, shipping it out there, and all those important things. And then lastly, questions, if anybody has any questions, and hopefully maybe I'll even have some answers for you in regards to that. So let's get rolling. Jergens, as Chris talked about, was founded in 1942. So let me just wind, for those of us who maybe were not around in 1942, but we did read our history books, what was going on. Obviously, 1942 was the time that the world was in its most turbulent times. I know every generation seems to think that, but we were in the middle of the Second World War. Pearl Harbor had just happened. Factories were going from making cars and all the things that we like to enjoy in our lives to switching over to weapons of war. Such things as Bing Crosby, for the grandparents who were out there singing White Christmas. Bambi was the first Disney movie ever to come out in color as an animated, and a movie that still gets airing is Casablanca out there. For those of you from the youth area out there, the draft was lowered to 18 years old. So mandatory draft was lowered to 18. Food was actually being rationed at that time. And I don't know how many people would have done this today, but you were limited to 3 gallons of gas per week. Probably a lot of you took 3 gallons of gas just to get here tonight out there. So I'm just winding that back so I can give you a little background, because I think that I'm talking to an audience with a lot of people. How many people in business are in a business program here? Very many? Okay, we had quite a few. You're the next entrepreneur. You're going to create that next corporation. You're going to start that next business out there. But wind it back in your brain, 1942, you're 25 years old, and you think you've got an idea to start a new corporation, to start a new business. You quit your job in the middle of probably the worst times in the history of the United States and the worst time of the world, and you wind it back and you start a factory. Why would you not go into the military? Well, this individual had rheumatic fever and was not eligible. That person I'm talking about was my dad, and he and my grandfather started that because they wanted to make an effort to help the war. They wanted to help our side so that we can actually make it safe for the world out there. So what they did is, Jack Schron Sr., I was born on my dad's birthday, so I ended up with his name out there. He and my grandfather started what then became known as Jergens, and during that time, it started to go through all kinds of economic challenges. And for you, you look at business and you think of business is going to be this perfectly nice, smooth ramp, and it goes like this. And if you do something successful, you're going to build on that, and then you're going to do something successful and build on that and continue. That's not the way it works. I'll just tell you, it's a bumpy road that has its little turns and twists out there. What happened in that turn and twist is they went from zero to all of a sudden rocket up there because they needed parts for aircraft and things of that nature. The day after the war ended, guess what? They don't need airplane parts. They don't need tanks. They don't need all those things. So what does that mean to businesses? The very next day, everything was gone, everything was shut down, and an entire factory of 40 people were laid off the very next morning because there was no need for a Hellcat or a Wildcat part. So when I look at people that are in business, and I know that I've got entrepreneurs in here, I know you're going to create that next exciting business. When that happens, just remember what I'm telling you about that young 25-year-old kid. And oh, by the way, he dropped out of high school because he wanted to make a difference. He wanted to make those things and make those parts out there. But he knew in his heart that he could do it, and he could have that desire. So when people start telling you, we already did that. We've already experienced that. Don't believe them. Remember this 25-year-old that I'm telling you the story about. And since that time, the company went through over 12 recessions, and everybody's going to tell you about, the Great Recession, the Big Recession, this one. Every one of them is tough, and every one needs to be worked through, but you can get through it. I know you can. I know the conflicts of the world, the challenges of that, they're all part of what it takes to go through life's big challenges out there. So with that, I encourage you to look at where it's going to go. And then I'll give you a little background of how we got here and what we did. And I know Chris said that I took over in 2007. Actually, it was a little bit earlier than that, like 30 years. So I've been running Juergens for over 30 years. And so anybody that's in your business school, you know that if you can count to three, that I'm the third generation. So all your business books statistically are going to tell you that's the one that screws it up. So far I've gotten through the first 30 years of running the corporation, getting it to the year 75. So what that does is that it means that when somebody asks you to get involved with your business or get involved with your own business or do something like that, take up that challenge and go with it. What we've done since I took it over, we've actually grown the business over probably almost 500%. We've been exciting about where we're going to go. And today, we started with, anybody know where the food bank is out there in the Shoreway? Okay. Juergens is right next to that. Juergens is we are the folks who cleaned up what had been abandoned railroad yard for over 20 years. The Collinwood Railroad Yard was housing such great things as drug dealers, all the dead animals on the east side of Cleveland, all of the trash that was dumped there. And what I said was, this is not good enough. This is the gateway to the city of Cleveland, and we've got to clean it up. Because if we don't do it, no one else will. If we don't start it now, no one else will do it. So we started cleaning it up, and about 14 years ago, we did that, put a factory on there. The food bank followed us about 5 years later because it's what I believe you need to do. And so if people tell you about, business people don't care about their community, they don't care about their neighbors, they don't care about education, they don't care about the inner city, again, please tell them I can do it. I know you can do something about it. So where have we grown to? Juergens now has operations in Cleveland, Chicago, Los Angeles. I've opened offices over in Shanghai, and I've got offices now in Mumbai, not to make stuff, because I don't believe in that. I want to sell them the stuff in Mumbai and Shanghai of what we're making in Cleveland or Chicago, because I believe that we've got the best workforce in the entire world sitting right here within 50 miles of where we are right now. So I think we can do it. And what does Juergens do? Just give you a little background, so you're driving by there and you say, that's the hand lotion company. No, that's not the hand lotion company. This is what these folks do. We make stuff to hold stuff. So that's what our background is. So let's see. Get any speakers hanging by the ceiling? I'll bet if we look around, the speakers in here are probably using our products to hold them up to the ceiling. We make the devices to hold the speakers for every rock and roll concert you go to. If you will go down to the Playhouse, you go to Conner Theater, Conner Palace, all those speakers hanging over your heads are being held by what we're making in there, which is pretty darn exciting. We ship those all over the world. We ship them all over for that application. If you have ever seen the movie like Top Gun and you see the aircraft taken off the back of the deck of the aircraft carrier, all those missiles are being hung by our products that we're making in that building. And lastly, when my dad passed away for holding up a hospital bed, our products were actually holding his hospital bed together when I looked down and saw that. So it was kind of a touching moment to know that our products are being used throughout there. And some of the other things that we do is we try to be the eyes and ears of what's going on in the industrial sector, what's going on in manufacturing, what's going on in when people are making things. Because one of the things that has to happen is people have to make and machine and put stuff together. Well, one of our divisions is involved with drills and cutting tools and fluids and lubricants and all those kind of things that get consumed in the industrial process. And people say, well, where's the technology of that? Well, what it is that just like the vending machines out here in the hall, all those things are now being dispensed by vending machines directly inside of factories and operations and production facilities. So you go in there, you put your key card in, and up pops a drill, up pops all the parts that get consumed. And then another piece of what we do is we make the world's most sophisticated electric screwdriver in there. They told us it couldn't be done. They told us that electronic parts had to come from China or from India or places like that. And we said, no, that's not true. We've got bright and young and intelligent people here, and I know we can make those here. So today, in that same building as you go past it, we're making the most sophisticated electric screwdriver that will put together things like that fruit product that a lot of us have in our pockets, that I'm not really allowed to say the brand, but all the little micro screws in here, we're putting together with our screwdriver. We're putting together the missile systems for Raytheon. We're putting together the airbags all over the world. So those are actually being made in right here in Cleveland when they said it couldn't be done. And just a guess as far as, what do you think an electric screwdriver would cost that we make right here in Juergens? Yeah, sure, yeah, right.
Are these the industrial ones that come down from the ceiling?
Yeah, these are industrial ones, but they're very, very precise. They will actually count the rotations of the screw. They'll measure it, feed it back, run it through a computer, and send that signal.
$500,000.
A screwdriver? No, that's a good number. Boy, I wish I could get that. No, but if you go to Home Depot, you're going to pay probably $200 for a screwdriver, $300. These are $7,000 a screwdriver. As fast as we can make them in Cleveland, they're being shipped out, and now they're being put into robotic applications where they are at $300,000 a screwdriver at that point. So you're not too far off. But that's all being done right here when they told us it couldn't be done. And what's pretty cool is that we've got electricians, we've got engineers, we've got all kinds of people that are participating and being part of the process. We have about a little over 400 employees. Again, it starts from somebody having a vision, having a dream out there. I know Chris talked about Tooling University. When I was here last time, Tooling U was just an idea, just to move beyond sketching it on the back of a napkin. And that's no exaggeration, it was sketched on the back of a napkin. Took it to all the schools, said, nope, that's a competitor. We want to keep our professors teaching. High school said, no, we're not interested in touching manufacturing. That's kind of a black art that we don't have nothing to do with. And so we said, all right, we're going to keep driving this process because we think it's the right solution. And places like Cuyahoga Valley Career Center picked up on it, and they found that the multiplier effect was almost 5 to 1 the ratio of the hour put in as far as what they could get. And Tooling U, what it was an idea. Again, somebody said no, and we said yes. It was an online learning platform where you could learn about welding. You could learn about how to read a blueprint. You could learn about machining. You could learn about all the things that everybody said no longer had any place because manufacturing was dead. And as Chris talked about just a few minutes ago, last year's class had a little over 250,000 students going to Tooling U. And I know it's going to have well over 1 million students. So if you have an idea about a product or an idea or a concept, remember Tooling U. Don't give up on it. Carry it to your dream and have fun with it. So that's one of the things that I like to at least leave as a positive message out there. I remember when Martha Pledger, who writes for The Plain Dealer, and she came up and interviewed me and said, what was your big mistake on it? And I said, our biggest mistake, thinking that we could do this by ourselves because we had the most intelligent folks in regards to, like welding, we used Lincoln Electric, and they're the world's largest provider of welding equipment. And we had some of the highest people around machine tools and technology and that. But what we didn't do is we didn't have a Kathy Patterson, who was an educator, to marry the content together And that's where we made our mistake. And so the chapter in her book was Big Mistakes by Jack Schron. It's okay. We then married an educator with a content person, brought them together, and that was the next round of learning of how to use the best and brightest of educators and content together. And so what that did is now Tooling U, we have since sold it, which is what entrepreneurs do. We get a business, we grow it, it gets out there to years 6, 7, or 8, and then you sell it to the next generation. And so they can take it to that million person. Tooling U right now employs over 100 teachers and educators doing something that they thought they would never be able to use their skills. They didn't like the classroom, but they did like to teach. And so it was a perfect marriage and a perfect blend out there. It's down on Prospect around 34th Street today. We sold it. Fortunately, our oldest son still runs it for the buyers out there, so it's a great thing out there. And one of the other things I love to do is I love to get people to come visit. And when they come to visit, they before I open the door, I said, what are you going to see on the other side of that wall? And I always love it because their face drops. And they're going to see, in their mind, something grubby, something dirty, something grimy, because that's the envisioning that they have about what it takes to make things today. And it's not. It's called a technology distribution center. It's not called a factory, because there you're going to see more technology in today's current industrial operations than you ever see in a Microsoft or any of those kind of places. You're going to see things like lasers, coordinate measure machines, robotics, all the things that are part of the excitement out there. So that's what they get their eyes opened. And actually, we've actually created another educational environment called Fast Forward, in which anybody who wants to come use it, you want to come see it, you want to come use it, it's open to the public, and you'll get to see, we actually have it cordoned off, so it's got a racetrack floor on it, so you can get the sexiness of what's going on out there. So that's a little bit about the Juergens side, where it came from, what we do in the business. And then Chris asked me to give you a little background myself. She covered a little bit about how did I get here. The only reason I could get here is because I have a beautiful wife of 47 years, and she has just been terrific, my wife. We've got 3 boys. We got 3 beautiful daughter-in-laws, 6 grandchildren, and we all stay very actively involved in each other's lives as part of it. I know my daughter-in-law has her birthday party right now going on out in Chagrin. So we do believe in, we lived in Louisiana, Virginia, Florida, Georgia with the military, but when it came time to raise a family, the Midwest is where we wanted to come back to. And so when you think about it and somebody says, well, the weather's the pits, it's just really bad news or anything of that nature, I look at them and I smile and say, do you realize that God only put 17% of the world with the blessing of getting all 4 seasons together at one place? And that's what we've got. And so think about it from the glasses half full side. Education-wise, Chris, I know, alluded to that. I believe that education is a continuum. It's not a point, it's not a degree, it's not a piece of paper. It's a continuum of life that my dad, when he fell down and broke his hip, said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'll tell you one thing you're not going to do. You're not going to sit in this hospital bed and just sit here and twiddle your thumbs. So we got a laptop for computer for him, and he had to review Tooling U content while he was in the hospital, not because we needed it, but because he needed it as part of the continuum of life. His answer always was, when you're done learning, he said, when they put that shovel of dirt on top. So don't ever, ever stop learning, because education is a continuum. Military, yes, I do believe that we will still face the bad guys out there at some point along the way. I don't think they're done with us. So I believe that we're going to have to shore up our defenses. And I spent 28 years in the Army between active duty and reserves. And I think it was part of who I am and how I got here. And some people say that I bring a little bit of a military background sometimes in my leadership styles, but nothing I can do. You can't take that out of where I come from. Elected official. Before here, we had a dinner and had a chance to talk about it. And one of the things that I believe our founding fathers said is they said, go out and do something, make a life for yourselves, and then come back and make a contribution to society. And so I really take that to heart. I did run for school board, was actively involved in our Board of Education for 12 years, because I think that's part of the giving back. And then something crazy happened 6 years ago in that if anybody's from Cuyahoga County, you know we had a horrible corruption problem, and you know that we threw out our government, and you know that we had 68 people, I think it was, get new hotel rooms for, one got them for 28 years, a new hotel room, one got another hotel room for 23 years, and as a result, we started to change the government. Some people asked me, would I be crazy enough to get involved in the forming of this new government? I said, okay, I think you're asking to get people involved. It's the right time of my life. And so I did run for the new county government. There was 100 of us running for the 11 new county council slots. And I've been on there for the last 6 years. I chair the economic development department. I'm involved with a lot of things out there. One of which is, if you've been reading the papers here lately, it's kind of a hot issue, is the Q. Anybody been reading about the Q on there? And yeah, I see some hands out there. And I'm the one asking some uncomfortable questions to the financial folks. I believe that if you can't tell the world why you're doing something, then you don't deserve the public's money. And so I'm asking some pretty tough questions on that. I can't tell you how it's going to turn out. I know the county's going to be voting on it in a couple weeks, and I know it goes before the city. What it is roughly, if you haven't heard about it, it's about a $260 million addition that's going to go, it's a glass atrium that is going to go on the front of the Q, of which the taxpayers are going to pay for more than half of it, and Dan Gilbert's going to put the other half in. So it's a big expense. It's a big thing going on out there, and it's one of the areas that I'm not afraid to ask tough questions. If you're going to step into the public limelight, do it with integrity, but don't be afraid of asking tough questions out there about where it goes. I chair economic development. I believe that the saving thing for every part of our society is a job, and that's what helps rebuild our society out there. So with that, the last thing that Chris asked me to mention were values, and where do they come from? What does it mean? Well, I don't believe that you can sit in a president's chair or CEO or an operation of an organization without bringing some core values from your heart and from your soul and what you do. And you got to not only bring them, but you got to live them. They can't be lip service. You can't say I care about my patient and then blow them off when you say, oh, geez, I got to go. You know, and knowing that patient just got there, they ran away, they ran out of their business, they just barely got there in time for their appointment. So that's what you got to do. You got to take care of that. I don't believe you can do that with a customer. I don't believe you can do it with anything. So you got to live the values out there. So what do? We do, goofy stuff there because we want it to also be fun. We have Halloween costumes that anybody at Juergens wants to come in and wear them on Halloween Day. We have no reserved parking spots in the entire parking lot, including myself. I pulled in there yesterday and there was no parking spots available. And one of the ladies came up and said, I took your spot. I said, no, you didn't. That was your spot because you got there first. And so the fact that I usually are ahead of anybody, it's one of the things that we want to make a statement to the world, that the only reserved spots we have in the entire building are for people who have been with us 25 years. And by design, I didn't put enough of those in, so that even they have to get there earlier than the other 25-year people if they want to be parking right next to the building. So it's kind of fun. We have cookouts. Everybody in management will put on their hats and and go on outside and make hamburgers and hot dogs for the staff. And it doesn't matter whether it's the people at midnight. We'll go there and actually try to live those values. For the last 30 years, I've given a birthday card to every employee and an anniversary card to every single couple on their anniversary date. So that's somewhere in the life of that about 4,000 birthday cards with money in there and a gift that says we consider you to be important. So it's a little thing about where the values are. But one of the other things that we did is in 1965, we actually started including every employee in the profit sharing plan. So way before anybody else was doing that, we have continuously shared the profits with the employees, because we think that there's not a dollar of profit that was created for the corporation that wasn't also being created because some employee was part of that, part of the solution, part of the team out there. So for that, since 1965, we made a statement that that's important to us. The other thing we said is that you need to look inside yourself and be willing to share. And so for 30 years now, we have a blood drive, and it comes 4 to 5 times, depending on scheduling, every year. And so we take people directly off of whatever they're doing, whether they're talking to a customer, whether they're in the machine, whether they're putting something in a box. We allow them to take time off on a paid basis to go in and donate blood. What that amounts to is, again, another value statement that we make to the employees. So that comes out to, I think, a little over 3,500 pints of blood have been donated to the Red Cross through our team. That means that, according to the Red Cross, that somewhere around 17,000 lives have been touched because of those folks taking the time. So again, it's not talking the talk, it's also living those values out there that Chris asked me to bring up. But one of the other things we did is that Max Hayes is the only vocational high school left in the entire Cleveland Municipal School System. Did you go to Max Hayes? Yes, I did. Okay, you're a Laker, huh? All right, a proud Laker. And so what we did is, because my dad went to Collinwood High School, I wanted to recognize the last vocational high school, so we created a scholarship fund. And so for the last 10 years, we scholarship every one of the students who makes an application out there to go on to Lakeland, to Tri-C, to wherever they need to. We will help them with their education and scholarship, because again, we want to be proud of what that means to be part of it. And you know, one of the ones that you never know where those values are going to rub off and how they're going to translate. And so I was in my office, I think 2.5 years ago, and one of the guys knocks on the side of the door, because I don't have my door closed ever, and he walks in and says, "Boss, I got this idea." And I said, "What's the idea?" And he said, "You're always talking about caring and sharing and being part of it." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I have a special needs child." And I said, "Okay, tell me a little bit more." And even though my child doesn't go to the Mayfield CVEC program, Mayfield has the Mayfield High School, the Mayfield Vocational Program, but they have a special needs program around vocational tech. And he said, "I think those kids could learn something and enjoy something by coming to Juergens and being part of that." I said, "Let's give it a shot." So we brought the Director of Education for the state of Ohio, came up to Juergens, we had the conversation. 2 years ago, we were the first company in the entire state of Ohio to bring special needs children into their operation, into a factory, put them right into a working environment where they could learn a skill, they could learn something that if you have any special needs in your family, you know that the biggest worry of those parents is that when they die, that child will not be able to sustain themselves. Now what we've done is we had 6 kids last year. 2 school teachers greeted them as they got off the bus. We were their classroom for the entire school year, and those kids learned a skill. One of them actually still works at Juergens. Others went to other opportunities, and so it was just a way of saying, Sivar, who was the supervisor, brought the idea. This was fabulous. One of the young men, when I met him at the beginning of the year, and I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't understand you." And that was about all I got out of the conversation with him at that time. At the CVEC graduation at Mayfield High School, he gave the graduation commencement speech for that class. And I get chills even when I say that, because it was pretty darn cool. And this year we have 9 kids, so if anybody is involved with education, that's a real testament to what they're doing out there. And I think the last thing we did is we actually created a family foundation in which we've donated, I think, a little over $500,000 to go to things like the Fisher House, the Greater Cleveland Fisher House out there, Wounded Warriors, Salvation Army. Everybody know what a Fisher House is? Fisher House is fantastic. We have a veteran, I bet you, here. And the Fisher House is the Ronald McDonald equivalent to the Veterans Administration. So the new Veterans Hospital is going to have a Fisher House that's going to be broken. They're going to break ground on it here in the spring. Not only going to break ground in one, they're going to break ground in a second one. So it's a way of telling our employees that this is who we are. This is what we try to do. Not every dollar goes into their pocket, into our pocket. Some of it goes into the life pockets of the veterans and their families that are going to be down there. So with that, I'm getting up to the end of our time here. You're going to be faced with challenges. You're going to be faced with opportunities out there. What are the biggest challenges that I see coming down the road? I think the biggest challenge is take care of your own health. Get up in the morning. I hit the treadmill a little after 5. I do my 50 push-ups. I do all those things because I have an obligation to our team that I will stay in the best health I can so I can do my job to help support them. And I encourage you to take that on as one of the things. But with that, keep your education moving. Remember about the dirt? Always make sure that you're continually educating yourself. Get a work balance. Make sure the work balance is not all work and not any relaxation, so keep that proper balance out there in your life. What do we need as far as the business? What are the challenges of the business? It means we've got to stay current. We cannot accept last year's practices as being the future for where we're going to go in our Juergens or any place we're going to go at Tooling U, any of those thoughts out there. A lot of us maybe are seeing some of the exciting things going on with three-dimensional printing. Some call it a maker's movement. Some call it additive manufacturing, all meaning the same basic thing. That's going to be a challenge for us in manufacturing. Where's it going to go? I mean, people like Caterpillar are going to eliminate. I talked with the legal team over at Caterpillar. They're going to eliminate their entire parts division within 10 years. Everything is going to be three-dimensionally printed. So a part that needs to go in the middle of the desert is going to be sent an electronic file. It's going to get printed there. Imagine what that's going to mean to the space capsule. By the way, that Amazon is not going to be able to deliver on that 3-year flight to Mars. So they're going to have to print a broken part up there in space. And people like General Electric on their jet engines, one of the jet engines that I was just reading about went from 320 parts in that engine down to 6 because they're being three-dimensionally printed. And American Greetings already is using this technology themselves. Instead of going down to the local Toys R Us, they just send an electronic file to little Sally. She prints her own My Little Pony right today in her color with the configurations in her own home, exactly what she wants. So that's one of the challenges, staying on top of the technology. But the next challenge that I think is even bigger for any of us and anybody who's going to go into business is finding good quality talent that wants to stay on top of their game. That's going to be the biggest challenge. How do we make sure that we are always training for the next generation? Thank God there are places like Lakeland Community College that are actually doing their part to make sure that you're in this seat learning that. So please, by all means, keep that talent going, keep that learning going, because that is the biggest challenge that I think we have out there. So, is the future great? I'm knocked out. I believe it. Who's going to control your future? You. You're going to control it by whether you sit in this chair or you sit at home or you learn something and you want to learn it on your own, because it's not going to be what you know. It's going to be how can you deliver that to the benefit of whatever it is you're trying to do. So with that, I think we're right to the question period. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might have about me personally, about the company, or about what I see for the future, because I think the future is bright. Yes, sir. There. I can tell you a little story of this one young lady, and she's not afraid of me saying her name because we've had her on TV and stuff like that already, and she goes and speaks at schools. She came to us in the shipping receiving department, part-time temp, China Coleman, and she said, gee, I want to learn something more. We said, okay, well, what do you want to learn? And she came with no formal education, nothing other than some high school background. From there, we moved her, and she wanted to go into assembly, so she started putting together these pins for aerospace. From there, she said, I want to learn those CNC computerized machines. From there, we moved her up to $200,000 or $300,000 machine tools. She went to school, continually learn. From there, she said, I like that other one. I said, you realize that's about $3 million worth of equipment? She says, yep, I want to keep on going. She got in there. She worked in that for about another 2 or 3 years. And she said, I want to go over to the quality lab and I want to be part of that. And she said, by the way, when are you going to stop paying for my education? I said, when are you going to be done learning? And she says, never. I said, that's the same day I'm going to stop paying you for it. So we need to get people excited. There's no question about it. Will everybody be another China Coleman? Probably not. But I really think that what our biggest challenge, believe it or not, is the mother sitting at home talking to that 5th grader that says this is a bad path. My wife was a dental hygienist for over 30 years. And it still doesn't have the respect I believe that profession needs, because some people call them name tag jobs. Well, God bless those name tag jobs, because without them, we don't have carpenters. Without them, we don't have this building we're standing in. Without them, we don't have our teeth. Without them, we don't have all the other things. So we just need to, as a society, needs to start waking up and telling people that, that same guy who dropped out of Collinwood High School, remember I said 400 and some employees? With operations all over Cleveland and Shanghai, that's what a dreamer can do. So I think one of the problems is that sometimes education has said, we're going to teach you a skill. And I think that's only half the game, because that skill is who's going to open that next car dealership. That skill is going to be who's going to open that carpentership. That skill is going to be who's going to open the machine shop. That skill is going to be who opens that high-tech lab to rebuild your Cisco routers and things like that. Because I can guarantee you, when our Cisco router dies on our computer system, I would much rather have a Cisco certified technician with that all he has or all she has is the learning they gained on that certificate versus an MIT graduate with a EEE electronic engineering. I will take that skilled knowledge out there. So it's not going to be easy. One of the reasons we opened up Fast Forward is because we were bringing in all this new technology, opening up to every school. Case Western Reserve brings their students down there, and our guys were going to paint some stuff on the floor and put some epoxy paint on it. I said, nope, that's not how we're going to do it. We're going to drop the ceiling, we're going to put lights in, we're going to put speakers in, we're going to put a racetrack floor on. We want this to be sexy so that anybody walking in here says, whoa. So this is what manufacturing looks like, because we want them to see that it's okay to use your hands and your brains. We have a young female engineer graduated from Case Western Reserve working right next to the technician, working right next to the sales and marketing person. That's what it looks like today. So it's not going to be easy, but we just need to get people to wake up, because I truly believe that making stuff is one of the cores of what's going to rebuild the Midwest here out there. Because I think we kind of thought that China, Vietnam, and India we're going to take away all that manufacturing. It's coming back, and those jobs are multipliers. Any other questions? Not based on safety, certainly. The standard of safety is the end of the. Everybody has to. The standard of safety has to be at this level, irrespective of anybody out there. And I think I saw the other day, we had like 350 or 400 days without lost time, because that's a benchmark for everybody out there from that standpoint. We even had sadly we had a fire on Friday night inside one of the machines. The oil line and caught it on fire. What I was thrilled about is every single thing that we had laid out in practice drills worked to a T. The fire extinguishers came in, the smoke got out there, everybody else evacuated the building. It was just perfect. So to that end, safety is not even an issue. But let's go to the other points that you said as far as performance and expectations. That'll all be part of the review process. In the review, there's going to be a grade, and on the grade is if you're performing at the highest level, you're going to get paid higher if you perform at the lower level, and if you perform too far below the level, we're going to ask you to find another occupation. If you're performing at the higher level, we're going to keep pushing you and want you to go to the next level on out there. We're not quite like General Electric, where they said that the 15% has always got to be moving out. We're not like that, but we do have, every job is graded based on if you're running a $3 million worth of CNC equipment, that's critical to the operations. That's going to be at a higher pay grade than somebody who's coming in and entering into beginning assembly on the process. But our sweeper gets paid over $15 an hour. I think that what you look at for somebody who wants to progress into management or move out of whatever their field is that they're currently in is heart, passion, the desire to learn, because you can't teach those things. I mean, just pure competency is not enough, because so many people are very, very competent. So it really takes that inner soul, that inner drive, that inner activity. And sometimes there's a misperception, and we try to make sure it's clear that just because you move into a tie or a white shirt part of the company does not mean you moved up. We clearly tell, it's much harder for me to get the guy who's running, or the lady who's running that $3 million worth of machinery on that CNC equipment. I mean, what I'm talking about here is 16 machines simultaneously this person is maintaining, all working at the same time. That person is much harder to find than somebody who's management, head of marketing, or any of those fields. That being said, we had a young man who we thought was on that track. Went through the mechanical, went through the engineering, went through the production, moved him on over, moved him up into sales management, and he said, I don't like this. And he's back doing what he really enjoyed doing, which was having his hands on the product and doing things back in the production facility. So sometimes management can make a mistake by thinking they need to move people along because we're doing them a favor. No, they might be just fine doing exactly what they're doing, but doing a better job every single time at what they're doing. And Tooling U had a belief that you can use your brains and your hands to make a living. And for a long time we said, only the ones using your brains are going to get paid higher. Those who are using your brains and your hands are critical to our society. I truly believe. And so we don't try to create a pecking order. That's why when you walk in the building, we have a wall almost this long that's with pictures of those people that have been with us 25 years, and then next to that is a wall with pictures of people who have since passed away, and they're still part of the Juergens family, who had 25 years with us. Those pictures are randomly put on the wall. That the executive vice president is right next to the sweeper, which is right next to sales and marketing, which is right next to somebody who's running a machine, because that's what our team looks like. That's the coolest thing. Yeah, I've got a passion, as you can probably tell from being in the military. But the Fisher House, we had to raise $3 million in this region in order to get the matching $3 million from Fisher House in Washington, D.C. What it was Mr. Fisher walked through the VA hospital outside of D.C. The concept of the Fisher House hadn't been there. And he saw this family coming in to see their service member, and there they were trying to make their way back and forth to a hotel that was miles away for the months and months of time that it takes sometimes for our service members to rehabilitate. And he said, this is just not right. And so he paid for this first Fisher House out of his own pocket. He then created the Fisher Foundation, and today the Fisher House, the ones that we raised $3 million, we just hit the goal last fall. I'm pleased that our Family Foundation was part of that, putting them over the top. With that, they are going to be breaking ground this spring on Fisher House. They were so impressed with what we did here in Northeast Ohio that they said they're going to put in another $6 million on their own. There'll be 2 Fisher Houses right next to the VA hospital. Our VA hospital is spectacular. If you haven't been down there, if you have service members in your family, it's great. They come in there, no cost to the family. They can stay there as long as they need to. They can stay there with their service member and be supportive, because we all know that we heal better if our loved ones are there with us out there. So that's what a Fisher House is. When you see it, not only do we need to build the bricks and mortar, but if it's something that hits a hot button with you, they now need to obviously maintain it, because you need to have games for the kids to play. You need to have, you can't be with your service member the entire time, so maybe money to buy a ticket to go to the zoo and things, whatever it is. There's a Fisher Foundation for the maintenance side of it, the service side of it too. So be watching the newspapers, go down there and be part of it. It's pretty darn cool. out there. So when you watch the Fisher House having the groundbreaking, I think it's going to be like in March or April. I mean, April or May. At one point, I was a young second lieutenant, and I had senior NCOs that reported to me that were 20 years older than me. You just have to accept the fact that that's what it is. And if you're going to have a boss that's younger than you, I can guarantee you they won't know as much as you will. But that's okay. Respect their position, respect the authority, and help them make a success. I'm a firm believer that you always try to hire somebody more intelligent and more aggressive than you are, because they make you look good. And if you have a young boss, make them look good, because they're probably on a different track than you are if you're coming in, and that's okay too. But a lot of times you can skip over and demonstrate your own knowledge to them. Just a little mini aside, we just had in this form of this new county government, of the 11 of us coming together, 8 Democrats and 3 Republicans, we all came together to create this new form of government. We didn't say there was any party unity or loyalty. There was nothing, because we were there for the good of the whole. And I truly believe that's what we did when for these last 6 years. The same thing with your example. If you're there for the good of the whole, whatever organization you're working for, if you go in there and say, I want to make you, boss, ma'am or sir, look good, even though you're 10 years or 15 years younger than me, that doesn't bother me in the least. I'm behind you all the way, because I know together the team will be better. That's my personal belief. And what's fun is we'll hire a young 18-year-old to come into the business, and they say, Mr. Schron. I said, I'm sorry, but he doesn't work here. I work here, Jack, and so from here on out, it's Jack to the 18-year-old and a 67-year-old out there, that we are on the same bonding path whatsoever out there. And I think the same thing you'll find will happen. If you eliminate age and worry about that, I think it'll all take care of itself. Oh, yeah, well, the question for anybody in here, I assume you're talking about international competition from business to business going at it, so I'll answer from that standpoint. I truly believe if we can not worry about the tariffs and TPP and NAFTA and stuff like that, I truly believe that international competition makes you better. I believe that all competition makes you better. We're shipping those electric screwdrivers that they said couldn't be shipped or made to China every single day. Those screwdrivers that I talked about, that $300,000 screwdrivers, they're going to Mexico. I wish the jobs were here, but I'm going to ship it wherever the customer wants it. So I believe that international competition causes you to sharpen your skills, just like I was captain of my wrestling team. You had to work and try to get better than the next kid. If you didn't, you shook hands and dusted yourself off and got back on the mat the next time. Same thing here with international competition. If you lose it. Now, that's assuming that everybody's playing by the same rules and playing by fair rules out there. If somebody is dumping product or dumping steel or something like that, that's a different story. That's not competition. That's cheating the rules. But if I'm bringing our work holding products, if I'm bringing our quick pins, if I'm bringing our screwdrivers and going head on head, it causes us all to be better out there. We would not be as good as we are if we didn't have a competitor in St. Louis and one in California and one over in Shanghai that's trying to knock us off every single day. We would get complacent. I don't know if that answers your question, Chris?
Thank you.
Uh-huh. They are. We have almost 20 Chinese engineers right now but I'm blown away that their office is in Pudong, because that's exactly where it is. It's in Pudong, they're all being made here in Cleveland or in Chicago, and we ship it there. Doesn't mean that someday we might not make some of our simpler products, but like these electric screwdrivers, we're not going to make them over there. We're going to make them here. We might assemble them there. We have a technician there to repair in the event that anything fails. We have technicians over there because we don't want to ship it back. One of the things that we've done that's kind of fun, just last week we did a ribbon cutting, and we actually have created a business condominium over there in Shanghai that other Cleveland area businesses are now coming and being part of the Juergens office there. What do I do for fun? We're blessed that we got 6 grandchildren, I tell you that. And I still ski. My wife and I, we made this determination. We're going to get old the year in which we don't water ski or snow ski. And so I still snow ski and water ski. I'm a model railroad buff. I couldn't get out here last week to see the big train show, I think, here. And unfortunately, I couldn't get here for that. And I just love to, I do enjoy working, so I guess that's kind of fun for me out there. Thanks. Thanks.